Daniel Haqiqatjou, aka the Muslim Skeptic, made a new video he names "Why Can't Muslims Say the Word Jihad?" This video has zero intellectual worth except as a case study into the sick mind of Islamists. I would have preferably named this video "The Psychotic Ramblings of an Islamist."
The thing about terrorism, and Chomsky says this as well as others, is that it's an undefined term. It's a vague term, deliberately vague. It's deliberately vague because it just means anyone who is acting violently against state interests. Anyone who is acting against state interests, and whatever the state decides is terrorist, becomes terrorist.
Okay, let's define terrorism for this idiot. Terrorists are non-state actors that attack indiscriminately and with no ethical consideration populations, and through carnage and terror seek a shock effect that lead to social turmoil and in terms bring political change. Now, for Haqiqatjou and regressive leftists like Chomsky, in other words, for Islamists and their allies, regressive leftists, terrorist means terrorist is a propaganda term Western states give to their enemies in order to attack them.
Right? They can use the word terrorist to control and enforce laws and to restrict speech, restrict organization, restrict activity, to justify their invasion, to justify their bombing, to justify their occupation. Just say that, oh, these countries are harboring terrorists.
Haqiqatjou, you know terrorism is real, right? For example, yesterday an ISIS bomber, suicide bomber, detonated himself in a crowd near the airport of Kabul, killing 170 people, the far majority of which women, civilians, including women and children. Okay, so what is that? Let's see the definitions again. Terrorism is a propaganda term Western states give to their enemies in order to attack them. That event fits this definition. Haqiqatjou? What do you think? Maybe Chomsky can help you with that.
For hour after hour, well into the night, the wounded were rushed to hospital. The chaos of the last week in Kabul turned to carnage. Some arrived by ambulance, some in cars, some in wheelbarrows.
And what do you mean they're harboring terrorists? Well, they're harboring terrorists, people with these extremist ideologies. So just because there are people there who have a certain ideology, a certain belief, we're justified in going in the West and bombing them? This is what the population should be asking. Like, just because they have certain beliefs and ideas, we should go and wipe them off the face of the earth?
Haqiqatjou, I know you are an Islamist, so you are brain dead completely. Okay. But how can we make this person get it? Okay. Terrorism is real. It happens, my friend. It's not as real as genes, but it happens in this world. It's not a delusion. We didn't invent that. Western Haqiqatjou, for example, the bombing in Kabul, it wasn't a CIA agent and throwing ketchup to people like they are injured. That actually happened. Okay. My friend, a real thing is not just, flying with flying donkeys, genes, magic. There are other real things outside of Islam. Okay, that thing happens, my friend. Terrorism happens. It's not an excuse. This guy went to Harvard. My friend, what can I say, my friend? You are truly the Muslim skeptic. Okay. Truly. Okay. This is exactly the Muslim skeptic. A brain-dead buffoon with zero sense of self-reflect and reality. Okay. Please, tell us. Continue your psychopathology.
This is what someone like atheist Sam Harris always claimed. Sam Harris argued very aggressively that yes, you can kill people just for their beliefs. Yes, you can kill people just for their values because those values are dangerous. He acknowledged this. Sam Harris acknowledged this, and he went so far as to say maybe we should actually use nuclear weapons against Muslims. How about we use nuclear weapons against Islam's holiest sites like Mecca? And yeah, why not? Because they have these ideologies that pose a threat to civilization. This is Sam Harris's argument, and he stood by that. He stood by offensive strikes, preemptive strikes.
Haqiqatjou, you are not just a complete idiot. Okay, you are also a liar. No wonder, because you are an Islamist. Islamist guys, in my mind, I cannot ever say a person is a liar. Okay, because in my mind, I cannot imagine people going so low. Okay, I cannot imagine that. But those are Islamists. So they don't have any moral limit. Okay, they don't have any moral limit. So I will simply call you a liar because I know your character. Okay. So first we will show how you are in favor of offensive jihad, what you accuse Sam Harris, and then we will see what Sam Harris actually said. Okay? Okay, Haqiqatjou, you little pathetic Islamist liar. Liar. Without honor. Okay, let's go.
Did Islam spread by the sword? Yes. But the point is that yes, Islam spread by military conquest, and jihad is not only defensive, it can be offensive as well. But isn't this completely immoral? Isn't this completely barbaric and contrary to religious freedom? Let me ask you a question. Do you agree with the Geneva Conventions? Do you accept the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Do you accept the idea that international bodies have the right to enforce certain standards of justice across the entire globe?
So, you just said what you accuse Sam Harris of saying. You said these words. You said that you want to impose Sharia with offensive jihad the same way the UN can enforce human rights. In other words, you want to impose with force to the world your ideas. That is what you just said, Haqiqatjou. So, you just admitted you want to do exactly what you accuse Sam Harris of wanting to do. Okay, now let's go and see what Sam Harris actually said.
I'm very happy to be talking to you, and I think we will have a good conversation. But I'm not at all happy with how we arrived here together, and I think there's something to be said about that, because viewers coming naively to this video won't understand, the context for this conversation. I think, and it's not a surprise to you because we've communicated by email, but I think you've treated me really unfairly in the last few weeks, and I've come here to clean up this mess, and that the structure of that conversation is an unfortunate one, because I'm going to be saying a lot of things that are going to sound defensive, right? I'm taking, the slime of a few people who you've had on your show before me off of me, right? And that's an unfortunate just context for any conversation, because One, I'm going to have to say some critical things about these people. These are people I don't actually want to talk about, like Reza Aslan and this guy C.J. Worrellman, who you've had on your show. What has happened on your show in previous weeks, you've had this guy Worrellman, who's now, you know, a well-established fraud and liar, and he's outed as a serial plagiarist.
First of all, let's just be clear, though. The plagiarism charges came out after he was on the show.
Yes, it's true. It's true. But I could have. I mean, it was obvious to me that this guy was lying about my views.
You have a perception of what they said that is not the same as mine, right?
Okay.
You view it as totally unfair, but that's why we're going to have this conversation, right? Because I think it is fair. Look, we got to go to the nuclear strike because, again, it affects all other issues. So now, you did not say we should do a nuclear strike on anybody, right? But you said we should, and correct me where I'm wrong, we should consider doing a nuclear strike, a first nuclear strike, under certain circumstances. I find that to be incredibly dangerous talk.
Okay, but it is a dangerous fact of the world that we have nuclear arms, right? We have nuclear arms because we have already considered doing a nuclear strike under certain circumstances. That is what the Cold War was about. Yes, so this is the world that we're in right now. If we could uninvent these weapons, that would be great, right? But we have a nuclear doctrine, and it developed entirely in a Cold War context, where we were faced with the Soviet Union that was, for all of the flaws and all the ideological quirks, this was not a death cult and did not have the basis of being a death cult. These were rational actors, and their hopes and fears and aspirations were constrained by terrestrial concerns. These were not people who could say, we love death more than you infidels love life, right? And again, this is just 2 paragraphs in the End of Faith, right? This is not me talking ad nauseum about nuclear policy. But in just a very kind of game theoretic way, I asked us to consider how a belief in martyrdom, a belief in paradise, just unties this convention of mutually assured destruction as a deterrence. The Cold War was possible because neither side wanted to really play a game of chicken. When you're playing a game of chicken with someone who wants to get to paradise, you're screwed. You're going to lose this game of chicken, right? So, and the moment you accept, and again, many people don't accept this for reasons I cannot fathom, but the moment you accept that certain people really do believe in paradise, really do want to die and to get there, right? Or they're hoping to be martyred. This is that death today would not be a bad thing for them. And then you imagine us failing to keep the big bombs and the long-range missiles out of their hands. You imagine a regime that is just like ISIS, but they've got ICBMs. We have to find some way to avoid that. And the Muslim world in particular has to find some way to avoid that. The Pakistanis that already have bombs, right? They don't have the missile technology, but they have the bombs. They're a coup away from delivering these bombs into the hands of the Pakistani Taliban. We have to find some way to avoid that.
Okay, Haqiqatjou, that is what Sam Harris actually said. And it's sanity. It's pure 1 + 1 = 2 facts of reality. Sanity, my friend. He just described sanity. So, what's the problem? In contradiction to you, that you lie, you deceive, you say bullshit, okay. In contradiction to you, who actually want to impose your ideas to the world with offensive jihad, Sam Harris just made a point, a very logical point.
What if it was discovered that you've apostatized? You'd have you'd be detained. You'd have 3 days to change your mind and to say, "Look, I reconsidered." And if you didn't do that, then it would be capital punishment.
Who's getting harmed there now? Like, we're talking about a harm.
All of society would get harmed.
Because of
you're advertising, you're speaking about leaving the religion, and that threatens everyone's afterlife, because other people might see that and hear about that and be affected by that. You're planning to broadcast your shows in the Middle East and in Muslim countries. So you're threatening the afterlife and the happiness, the ultimate happiness of millions of people with that
Daniel,
act.
do you
The government,
really?
the state, I'm just applying your secular definition, Ali, of maximizing happiness. Okay, so if we want to maximize happiness of the most amount of people, we have to have severe consequences for apostasy.
We have no doubt, and we're proud of that. Yeah, capital punishment will be applied in an Islamic state. Yeah.
This is what someone like atheist Sam Harris always claimed. Sam Harris argued very aggressively that yes, you can kill people just for their beliefs. Yes, you can kill people just for their values, because those values are dangerous. Offensive strikes, preemptive strikes. He stood by torture. He stood by assassinations. This is part of his ideology, because Sam Harris is a liberal. Sam Harris is progressive in some of his beliefs because of his atheism. So these are the kinds of things that he would promote. So
Sam Harris stands for torture and assassination. Let me guess. He said that as a last resort, we might torture terrorists to find out where is a nuclear bomb. That is what he said. As a last resort. Now, assassinations, assassinate Bin Laden. This is what he meant. Okay, that is what Sam Harris said. Now let's see you who support torture and assassination for trivial stuff, my friend. Let's see how you support murder.
Recently, Daniel shared this joke on Twitter. Oh man, I missed the International Day Against Homophobia. The best way to celebrate such a beautiful, momentous, important day is the Muslim way. Recreational base jumping. Daniel Haqiqatjou here is referencing the Islamic punishment to execute gay people by throwing them off a high place and making their punishment a spectacle for people.
Daniel Haqiqatjou and radical preachers like him are directly responsible for terrorism we see around the world. He provides the ideological justification for terrorism. Radical preachers like him are the source of evil. These characters are not even qualified to be called evil. They are just blind followers of an evil cult. Weaklings, pathetic weaklings, without character or any rational process. They have surrendered completely their cognitive faculties to Islam. You support assassinating people for being gay. You also support assassinating people because they left your cult. You also support assassinating people because of blasphemy, because they have a cartoon, because they made a cartoon against your prophet. You support torture of people, chopping hands, torturing people, stonings, torturing people. You support torturing people for trivial reasons. And you dare say Sam Harris supports that, eh? Haqiqatjou, you are an Islamist. Okay. At this point, Islamist is a worse insult than to call you stupid or insane or a complete. Okay. Islamist at this point is a worse insult. You are an Islamist, my friend. Enough said. Modern educational institutions give the tools for successful people in the workplace, but they do not civilize people. In contrast with ancient Greek systems, educational systems, that first produced humans and secondary was providing the information. First they sculpt the soul and the mind, the soul and then the mind. Daniel Haqiqatjou, although educated in Harvard, his soul is apedefti. That means not civilized. He is still a barbarian. Barbarian comes from the Greek word varvaros. Initially, it referred to how Greeks were hearing foreigners speak. Var, 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 var. And it meant essentially anyone non-Greek. In the ancient times, the civilization difference of the Greeks to foreigners was so huge that made a meaningful distinction. Ancient Greeks engaged in deep moral philosophy that is even advanced for today, in contrast to their neighboring tribes that were like Conan the barbarian. Okay, so in the ancient times, Varvaros, barbarian, was a non-Greek. They could see this cultural difference. Okay. In the modern times, it means a person who is not civilized. One of the great distinctions I see is uncivilized people focus on the ends as to the ends justify the means. Civilized people focus on the means. One night, Alexander the Great was watching with his soldiers the campfires of the Persian army, and they were more than the stars in the sky. A soldier then tells to Alexander, "Let's attack them in the night so we can have a chance to win." Alexander responded, "What's the honor on that? I will defeat them in the daylight so everyone can remember my name."
Get up, Prince of Troy. Get up. Won't let a stone take my glory.
I won't let a stone take my glory. Heroes in ancient Greece cared about how people will remember them. Okay. For an ancient Greek hero, if you were to tell him, let's say Achilles, for example, Achilles, if you were to tell him, go and rape this woman, he would rather die, because this will destroy his soul. Okay, his remembrance is worse than death. As Socrates said, it's better to suffer an injustice than to commit one. Socrates explained, what is the worst thing that can happen if you suffer an injustice? They might take your money. You might lose your social status. You might humiliate yourself. You might injure yourself. You might even die. But you don't lose your soul. When you commit an injustice, you compromise your soul. You lose your soul. Hippocrates, the father of medical care, made the Hippocrates Oath. Every doctor or medical care practitioner has a responsibility to treat all patients. That's why in battles, ancient Greeks were treating also their enemies. So every wounded after the battle was treated by the ancient Greeks, even in war. When the Olympic Games started, all the wars stopped. Okay. It was illegal to have a war in the time of the Olympic Games, because the Olympic Games symbolized F αγωνίζεστε. F αγωνίζεστε means you are honored for trying. Okay. you are honored for doing the best you can. That is the symbolism of the Olympic Games. Also, the Olympic Games is a sanctuary, meaning that for a period of time, we put the human spirit over our practical differences. Okay. So, that is civilization, my friend, that you can go above wars, aggression, all. If you cannot go above your hate, your aggression, okay, that means that you are a slave of those things. In other words, do whatever, but with honor, my friend. Even war, you need to fight with honor, my friend. Terrorism is, let me explain the definition of terrorism, is fighting without honor. That is simple. Without restrictions. Indiscriminately. Trying, instead of defeating your enemy with your honor, you try to make political change with terror. What's that? That's pathetic, my friend. Attacking civilians. That's utterly pathetic. Attacking children and women. I mean, that's pathetic, my friend. Let's say, guys, let's say that I go to Turkey. I find a family. I kill the woman and I kill the children of a family. And I create terror and I win the war. Then I will be happy. Oh, okay, I won the war now. I have more cars, more money, more. My friend, you lost the war. If you attack civilians, my friend, you lost the war. What's the honor of that? You lose more than you gain. You don't understand that. Muslims, think about this. How much damage terrorism made to Islam? No war can create as much damage to Islam as terrorism does to Islam. No war can make so much damage. Isn't that completely logical? Anyway, thank you very much.